Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what part of the world you are in your mind or physically, but it is a great day. I know it might be raining outside in some parts of the country, but in others, the sun should be shining on the inside. How are you, Dr. Draper?
I am well, impeccable. How are you?
Good. I wanted to try my broadcast voice for once
You
instead
got
of
it.
just being Jay Jackson. How are you? Good to see
I'm
you.
well. I'm well. How are you, man?
Fantastic. It is a beautiful day. I mean, whenever you wake up, you should just be grateful and thankful and feeling energized. And today's topic, it really hits my heart. You see, I even had to wear my Morgan State University shirt. It is Black people versus HBCUs. It has been HBCU week, and we have a special guest coming on to join us. If you've never tuned in, the Chicken Box, powered by the oldest media company in the country, 132 years. Yep, not just Maryland, not just the DMV, but we're going to take the world. Let's just go with the world. Powered by the Afro. Thank you for tuning in and continuing to support us as we tell the good news and your stories all over the world. But we have a special guest, and I heard he might have gone to one of these great HBCUs. Mr. Travis Mitchell, how are you? Are you with us today?
I'm with you, and you heard correct, my friend. I went to the Morgan State University. There is no other.
Absolutely. When you put the in front of it, you know what I mean? That kind of just stamps it real strong and makes a strong statement. But welcome to the Chicken Box, Brother Mitchell. For those who don't know you, I was talking to you a little bit backstage. You said you're from Raleigh by way of headed down to Georgia and then came to Maryland. So when I was listening to your accent, I was trying to figure it out, but now I see you've been influenced by a lot of different communities and places.
Yeah, when the pressure hits me, I sure enough sound like I'm from the South. So during the course of this conversation, it might leak out a little bit. So it's a little bit of Raleigh.
This is pressure free. You know what I mean? If you're not from Baltimore, Chicken Box is 4 nice wings. It's lunchtime most places. You know, they fry them. I would prefer them to be air fried now that I'm getting older, but or grilled. But anyway, it's still good. Put a little salt, pepper, ketchup, or hot sauce on it, and they used to make wedges. Do you remember when they used to make fries? Those wedges that go in, and then you got to order a half and half, or in other parts of the country they call it an Arnold Palmer.
The question is, what kind of hot sauce though? Because down south we rock with Texas Pete. What we rocking with in Baltimore?
Dr. Draper?
What? But I'm not a hot sauce person.
I used to have hot sauce. I remember.
Yeah, but I grew hot sauce.
Tabasco, I think.
Yeah, I can't get with Tabasco. That's not real hot sauce.
Jay, what hot sauce have you tried?
I am a hot sauce person, but most of what I've had with Chicken Box is probably Crystal or Tabasco. So.
Crystal, okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else who just tuned in? What's your favorite hot sauce? Byron Deese, one of our biggest fans. How you doing, Byron? Was good seeing you at the caucus, and he says Tuskegee is in the building. So Travis Mitchell, or Jay, do you want to introduce Travis? Or Travis, you have your own wonderful introduction. You know how those comedians used to do back in the day. Wait a minute, let me introduce myself.
Well, certainly I'm not funny, and I hope just that you all know how grateful I am to be with you today and how much I appreciate the support over the years. But you know, I'm just a little kid, you know, from the South that came to Baltimore, to Morgan State, the Morgan State University. Thought that I was going to be able to make some records on the basketball court, and then as fate would have it, you know, I left the basketball team and discovered who I was at Morgan State as a leader. So I graduated from Morgan State University. I am currently now the Senior Vice President, Chief Content Officer of Maryland Public Television. So it's been back here in Maryland for about 5 years. You know, the highest ranking African-American in the 50-year history. But it all is due to Morgan State University. You know, I kind of talked about Raleigh and the importance of HBCU, so I'll just share for a moment. Now, I grew up on the campus of Shaw University, the oldest HBCU in the South, the place where Ella Baker formed the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which helped revolutionize and mobilize a revolutionary effort to overturn Jim Crow laws in the South. So when it was time for me to go to college, at Shaw University, where I walked on the campus, where my uncle was on the board, my father was a basketball coach, my mother, everybody went there. And so when I was looking for a college experience, I was looking for something that was similar to my Wakanda. And so when I came to Morgan, I discovered that Morgan had a history of protest and agitation and mobilization well before 1960 founding of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. So walking the campus of Morgan State University, understanding the legacy of the legendary Carl Murphy, and deciding that I wanted to be a journalist, where the Afro opened up its doors to me to help teach me things that I did not know, and where I could see people that looked like me doing what I wanted to do. So had it not been for Morgan, no Morgan, no me. So I say to people, I am Shaw raised, but I am Morgan made.
Boy, that'll work at every convocation across America. HBCU week. Talk to me about that, and what made you want to really get behind that and really keep that in the forefront of where it should be.
Well, I got to tell you, when I came to Maryland Public Television, I came at a time, I was at PBS North Carolina as the chief content officer there. And when I came back home, my second home here to Maryland, it was right before COVID. And so I came here, I left UNC TV, PBS North Carolina, February 25th, 2000, came here February 26th. And my first order of business was to shut everything down the next week because of COVID. And you may recall that it was a very turbulent summer. Not only did we have COVID, but Baltimore had already experienced the pain and the tragic loss and death of Freddie Gray. And then on top of those wounds, not even healing yet, we have the George Floyd situation. And at MPT, we found ourselves disconnected from the community. Maryland Public Television has done some great work over the years, but our mission is to enrich lives and strengthen communities through the power of media. But if you're not in the community, you can't strengthen the community. So I didn't feel that we had a connection to our community. And as opposed to being reactive, I thought we needed to develop meaningful partnerships with our institutions. And so by forming partnerships with HBCUs, by reaching out and trying to figure out where we had common ground with the Afro and with minority media, Black-owned stakeholders, I feel like I'm a steward of the public airwaves. And so my responsibility is to make sure that all the people have access to the forum and the platform that was created to serve them. And so what better way than to launching a week of programming that celebrated not only the history of our HBCUs, but the contemporary relevance. You know, a lot of times our HBCUs are stuck where we celebrate our history. We don't have the access to the broad media platforms, the general market platforms, to tell our contemporary stories. And so we either get stuck in the past, and then when there's a sensational headline, it could be something that happens across the street or down the street from one of our HBCUs. The negative headline tends to dominate the news cycle. And so the positive things that are happening in terms of research or enrollment or programs gets lost. So I wanted to take our primetime hours and give our presidents control of the narrative. And then we start looking for films about HBCUs around the country. And so 5 years ago, we developed a week long of programming in prime time, Monday through Friday, with nothing but films about HBCUs and then interviews with our presidents. And now we've expanded it. This past couple of weeks, 2 weeks ago, we had our HBCU week on MPT, and we had over 30 hours of films about HBCUs Monday through Sunday. So if you tuned in and you want to know anything about the HBCU experience, from culture to arts to education to civil rights to sports, you name it, and we had it on. And if people missed it, they can still go see it. All the programs are on demand. They can go to mpt.org/HBCU. But Impeccable, it was important, and Dr. Draper, and it was important that people, Jay, understand that we weren't just going to do this once. Right. It was a part of a commitment to do it ongoing. And it was important for us to mainstream the subject matter experts at our HBCUs so that in the course of our regular coverage, we can go to the experts that happen to possess the intellectual capital and brilliance on our campuses. So it was a repositioning of HBCUs into their appropriate space. And so why September is because since 1980, every president has authorized HBCU week since Jimmy Carter in 1980, and it normally falls on the second to third week of September. And so we wanted to get in alignment with HBCU nationwide. And we recently, I was here a year ago, and we had talked about a pilot program that we're doing with 3 other stations, WHUT and TV, the only PBS station that's owned and operated by an HBCU. So WHUT has been a partner from the beginning. As a Morgan man, I feel a certain way about Howard University, but in the larger scheme of things, we're all the family, and there's no way that you could do anything without HBCU, without Howard being a partner at the table. And I feel great about Howard. I'm just kind of joking to any Howard bison out there, because bears eat bison all the time. So anyway, back to why we wanted to do this. We were able to expand to several other stations, Louisiana Public Broadcasting, and then PBS North Carolina, where I came from. Now, those 3 stations served, I believe it is we're close to 20 HBCUs. And so this couple of weeks ago, we made an announcement that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, seeing what we did in the pilot program, has now helped us expand our HBCU week now, so that stations around the country can model what they're doing after us here in Maryland. But they also are funding films. We'll have over 24 short digital films about HBCUs over the next 2 years. And those films will be produced in partnership by the PBS station in conjunction with their local HBCU. So now, through that grant and through some other grants we've been able to get, next fall, we'll be able to have HBCU week nationwide, and we'll have about 22 stations that cover 100, share markets with all 100 plus HBCUs around the country. So we wanted to bring HBCU week to PBS, where we believe it belongs. We wanted to make sure that our HBCUs had access to the public airwaves to accentuate their stories, amplify their missions, and give our presidents ownership of the narratives. And I think we have gone a long way and been able to accomplish that goal.
You are taking our information to the airways in a powerful way, and we thank you for that, because a lot is lost because there's so much misinformation that floats around and so much foolishness that consumes the airway with all the social media. And I call it foolishness because it distracts you from really what's going on. And then when it's time to look into higher education, you overlook some of the gems that have been in our community. Dr. Draper, you are Morgan grad as well. Welcome.
Yep,
Morgan State University. And
Morgan
also, I
Nate.
know you
Yes.
served on the board. It might have been college when you went there, then they changed
was.
it. It was Morgan State College, now Morgan State University. Jump in.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump right in. First of all, thanks, Travis, for joining us. Now, there may be some of our viewers, I hope not, that don't understand that HBCU stands for Historically Black Colleges and Universities. It's not as much about the percentage of enrollment. It's really about the founding of the institution. And when you watch the MPT series, you get a lot of background around the impetus for starting all of these wonderful institutions of higher education. Sorry, Jay, to overwhelm you with the Morgan thing, but it's just.
Don't worry. In my household, we have a Morgan connection. It's fine.
Okay. Well, good. We have a Morgan connection.
A nice house, Jay. Nice house. Go ahead.
I want to really. Travis is modest. What he's been able to initiate at Maryland Public Television and now to go nationwide, he said it as if it was just like that easy to do, and I'm sure that it wasn't. But he had to have cooperative leadership, so kudos for leadership at MPT as well. But for this to go nationwide, that's huge. There's a lot of programming everywhere about all kinds of things on, NPR, which is public radio, and public television. And we don't get this kind of concentration unless it's Black History Month or week or whatever we're celebrating. So kudos to you for that. So Travis, can you talk a little bit about how receptive audiences have been, supporters have been, or not, around this whole topic? And we see the finished product, but I am sure that it took a lot of persuasion. And let me add this before you answer. Travis is also, I hope I get this right, the chair of the board of visitors. Is it board of visitors for the
Board of Advisors.
advisors for Morgan School of Global Journalism, and I shortened that name. It's a longer name than that.
It's fine. Whatever you say, that's going to be the name.
It's going to be okay. I like short because I can remember short.
That's how we honor each other at Morgan. Whatever you say is right. So I appreciate your sharing that. Again, it's a full circle moment. But to be completely transparent here, it was received well first year, but people wanted to see, are we going to stick to it? Is this just in response to the moment? Are you reacting to George Floyd? Is this just going to be a reactionary process and you're going to go back to not including our schools? So we had to build trust. Even though I'm a HBCU grad and supporter through and through, I had to build relationships. The presidents needed to know that their messages weren't going to be compromised. They needed to know that there was going to be no favoritism, that everyone had access to tell their stories. And the alumni wanted to know, is this real? And so we had a lot of work to do, and we still have a lot of work to do at MPT to build stronger relationships with our community. And then it was helping PBS affiliates. I gotta tell you, I couldn't make the moral or the ethical argument that diversity is important. I had to make the business argument, and that is that in our communities, public media, its competitive advantage in this shrinking landscape, as you all know better than me, public media's advantage as a nonprofit or not-for-profit entity is in its service to its communities. And so the more we serve communities and give people access to the platform that never really were able to access it before, to your point, Dr. Draper, in concentration, now we're building relationships with people who understand the value proposition of their local TV station. And so even though we have to compete on multiple digital platforms, et cetera, where we have an advantage is in our service to our local communities. We can do things like HBCU. No other commercial entity can do it. No other entities have ever had this type of concentrated programming. So I had to make the business case. And then so far, people are able to see our results here in Maryland. Our viewership numbers, while other public media stations have experienced much more decline in their linear TV viewing, we are leading the nation in terms of less decline. We still have some decline in linear TV numbers, but it's significantly less. We also have seen growth in our multiple platform, our digital offerings. And so what it tells me, although I don't have causal connection yet, it tells me that we opened up the tent wide and it brought in more people who want to come into the tent and fellowship with us as we carry out our mission. And so that's been the most challenging thing, is here's a good idea, but how do we make it into a great idea and really accentuate the business opportunities for the local PBS stations?
That's great. I'm going to pass the ball to Jay.
Okay. That actually hits on a point that I wanted to talk about, Travis. This idea of having to pitch this. And I was wondering, what was the initial reaction to this pitch, right? There's always sort of the, conversations about colleges, and then, from certain, demographics, and then sort of HBCUs are seen as almost kind of a lesser talked about institutions. So I was just wondering, when you pitched this, and obviously this became, a thing very prominent and very well received in Maryland, and you had to make this idea of not pitching this from a sort of diversity aspect, but from a business aspect. Do the people that you've now pitched this to in MPT and now sort of, I guess, nationwide, have they come back and said, oh, not only were you right about this, let's expand it? And are they looking to sort of make this a mainstay and sort of say, okay, how do we not just keep this as an HBCU week sort of situation, but maybe we start to move this into a larger conversation and you know, sort of push the idea of people being able to watch this information and have access to this information all the time, and you know, see what that does nationally. I mean, I'm just wondering if you've seen anything like that.
Great question. The jury's still out on that because we are just going into our first year. So our performance metrics are going to be vitally important. What I've been able to do here at MPT is directly connect our local effort to revenue. And so because we are expanding the base of our viewership, it has led to much more revenue than we've had in our original productions. And then the other thing too is the African-American community is the most loyal, still desirable brand consumer or consumer of brand goods. Okay. So when you're able to directly deliver to a concentrated demographic in any market across the country, that has appeal for sponsors that are looking to build an alliance. So you may say, well, there's plenty of ways that people figure out a way to get to the African-American community. Well, public media had not been doing it. And so what happens with public media is that it is the number one source, most trusted source of news and information in the broadcasting space. And so we can ride that into the halo effect that corporations and funders get by association with the brand. And so what I have to do in this next year is I am under performance pressure to make sure, and here's the key now, we make grants available to stations, and we want those stations to produce content about their local HBCUs. But I have to make sure that those stations consult with the local HBCUs so that the local HBCUs are part of that planning and production process. From a bigger, larger picture, we're standing up a student film festival, HBCU student film festival. So that
I was just going to ask about this.
So that HBCU students through their universities can begin developing digital shorts that we want to showcase on public media. So here's what I need, and here's the challenge. I am going to need partners in the grassroots. I need, this interview is so dear and important to me. I can't do this as an individual. MPT can't do this. I'm trying to create a movement to sustain what we're doing. So I need the grassroots community in every area around these PBS stations to make a big deal, just like the Afro is doing with me today about why this is important. I'm trying to build it to last beyond me. I'm trying to make it into something that becomes a mainstay. And so here's how I give the argument. If you didn't go to an HBCU, or if you're not African American, why is this important? And Dr. Draper said something in the beginning. HBCUs may be historically Black, but they've never been exclusively Black. The reality is, in this kind of experiment of freedom and democracy, HBCUs represented the best of American ideals because you had people of different backgrounds, white, Black. You had people at different economic levels that came together believing that newly freed slaves deserved the right to learn how to educate themselves. In fact, if you go back to 1837 in Cheney, well before the Emancipation Proclamation, it was understood that education was important, not just for the Black community, but to develop the workforce in these local communities to be able to be critical thinkers and contribute to the local economy. So we have to reposition the argument about HBCUs. I just came from a conference in Pittsburgh where I spoke to our national thought leaders in PBS. And what I explained about HBCU Week Now, our public media partnership, this is the name of what we're doing, is that the very freedoms that we take for granted, people of all colors, to go into the restaurant, to eat where you want to eat, the right to vote. These freedoms were made possible because students on the campus of these HBCUs, we talked about Morgan in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and then the students in the South, sit-ins and freedom rides and marches. They put their lives on the line. They put their futures on the line so that every American, white, Black, Hispanic, Asian, no matter where you come from, can go into public places and be authentically who you are. So in a real sense, America owes a debt of gratitude to the courageous freedom fighters young people from HBCUs and those who came out of HBCUs. No HBCU, no king. No HBCU, no Jesse Jackson. And so a pastor of mine, Dr. Draper, in North Carolina, we did a documentary, one of my first documentaries. We won an Emmy. It's called Shaw Rising. And he says in this documentary, he says, I'll put it to you this way. No Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. So no Shaw University, no SNCC, no Civil Rights Act, no Voting Rights Act, no Obama. And I dare say no Harris. So the reality is, because of HBCUs, the American economy and access to democracy, the doors flung wide open for people who are not just African American, but for all people. So American investment in HBCUs is good for democracy. Investment in the development of all of her potential talent is good for our economy. If we want to remain globally competitive, you can't take off the table the institutions that have produced the lion's share of judges and lawyers and STEM majors and scientists. Even just 100 HBCUs, there are 14 to 15 engineering schools. And then outside of the engineering schools, HBCUs still produce the majority of STEM majors that are produced that happen to be Black. So if you want to remain globally competitive, it makes good business sense to invest in HBCUs. So Jay, that is the larger argument. Beyond me, what I'm trying to do is say, listen, and in our own community, let me just say this, when we talk about reparations and we talk about remedies to past injustice, HBCUs have to be at the top of that list, because these are our institutions. These are our places where we can dissect and address issues and study issues free and uninhibited and unchallenged. We can be who we are. We can think freely. And then we can come up with concepts and solutions for future generations. Whether you went to an HBCU or not, that should be something you support. Final point. Growing up in the South, my parents could not go to PWIs. They could not go to Shaw University, to North Carolina State or UNC. They didn't go to Shaw University because they didn't have opportunities elsewhere, because there were PWIs outside of South they could have gone to. They went to Shaw University because of its legacy. Yet in North Carolina, even in the midst of Jim Crow, when it comes to athletics and sports, people find a way to support schools by wearing paraphernalia of UNC or North Carolina State, even though they couldn't go there because they took pride in their state. Why isn't the inverse true? So you went to a PWI, you can still rock the Morgan paraphernalia. See Impeccable, he'll tell you how to get a fly shirt like he has on today. You can still take pride in your local HBCU. Why? Because that HBCU made freedom possible for all Americans.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, that there you have it.
That's a mic.
I feel like that's the end of the interview.
Thank you, Travis. And you just bring to mind, you didn't say it, but we've talked about this. If it wasn't for the Black-owned press, then those things that you're talking about wouldn't be widely known. So there's got to be a way that we can collaborate, and we've talked about some ways to do that. And so, listen, you just spurred some more ideas. We'll talk about it offline. But you're right; it's a larger conversation, right?
Absolutely.
I want to say to our viewers, if you're watching us live, this is a live show, which means we don't have any oops. We can't go back and edit, Travis, and we don't need to usually. And people are watching now, and then some people are watching later. We just want to say hello to those who are watching. Come on, let us know that you're watching. If you went to an HBCU, weigh in. If your grandmama and them went to an HBCU, let us know which ones you went to. We want to give a shout out to the HBCU that you went to. If you have a young person in your family who's contemplating college now, drop that in the chat as well. So you're on the chicken box, powered by, Kevin said, the nation's, he made a claim. We're not the nation's oldest Black-owned media company, but we are the nation's oldest family-owned Black-owned media company. How about that? Family run. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I know.
Details.
It's close. Put it in the fact check machine. But look, Travis was talking, and I got so excited, Travis. I mean, and I went to a HBCU, and then in my other life, I worked with a lot of celebrities, and I pulled this up, and we wanted just celebrities and who've gone the HBCUs. Just a quick list. I mean, we got Spike Lee, Morehouse represented. We got Sam Jackson, Morehouse, Chadwick Boseman, Howard. Well, we'll skip this guy because I think they picked him out. No, that's not nice. I mean, he needs prayer at this moment because the whole world is after him. Taraji Howard. Howard's dominating on the celebrity tip hump. Anthony Anderson, Lala Anthony, Howard University. DJ Envy from the
Breakfast Club,
right? Hampton.
Mm-hmm.
You got Carmen, Florida A&M.
Mm-hmm.
Erica Badu, I didn't know. She went to Grambling. You guys might didn't know. Randy Jackson, American Idol. 2 Chainz.
Mm-hmm.
Felicia Rashad, there's Howard again. I'm just getting everybody excited. Debbie Allen. I think these 2 are sisters. They sent them both there, right?
Right.
Wanda Sykes, Hampton. We got David Banner, Southern. Southern's in the building. Oh, Yolanda, Texas Southern. Wale, Bowie. There it is. All night long. Tuskegee University. Tony Braxton. Bowie State is on the map. One of the first African Americans to break into TV. Keenan Ivory Wayans. You didn't know he went to Tuskegee. His brother went to Howard. Keisha Knight. The whole Cosby crew went to a HBCU. All right. Nice list, right?
Yeah, so they forgot Impeccable and Dr. Draper from Morgan. That y'all should be added to the celebrity list.
You know, we're not on this celebrity list.
But you my celebrity, so you go ahead and I vote
now,
for
look
you
at
on the
this.
list.
Who knew Florida went to Spelman?
Mm-hmm.
Even Mace went to Clark. Anyway, I say all that to say, look, you got to be proud. HBCUs produce some of the greatest scientists, mathematicians, business people, authors, educators, you name it. If you haven't been to your HBC in a long, long time, you better take a look at it. Especially if you paying for college, parents. My rule is you can't go to another school unless you got a scholarship, because I'm not paying for it.
Well, Impeccable, let me ask you and Dr. Draper a question. Why do you think that HBCUs produce leaders? What did your HBCU experience do for you?
Well, that's a loaded question. Let me say about my HBCU, which is more state college at the time than university. And so my grandfather, Carl Murphy, was the first African-American chair of the board of trustees, is what it was called then at Morgan. He had 16 grandchildren. 13 of us lived in Baltimore. Every Saturday that we were in his presence, if we were at his house on a Saturday, we walked the campus of Morgan. And he said to us, "This is Morgan State College. This is where I am chairman of the board. This is where I want my grandchildren to go, because you're going to get a fine education and you're going to be valued for who you are." And now none of his daughters went to HBCUs. And that's another whole story. State of Maryland paid for them to go to Big Ten schools. They were studying journalism. Morgan didn't offer that course at that time. And so the influence of parents and grandparents who lifted up the value of the HBCU, let me tell you, that, in addition to the academic value, which is very, very high, the social capital that you receive as a student at an HBCU is unprecedented. You don't have to keep explaining yourself. When my mother went to the University of Wisconsin, somebody touched her skin and said, "Oh, is there some kind of Mardi Gras in your city that makes you color your skin?" They had never seen a Black person. So she and her sister were always under a microscope. She hated the culture of the University of Wisconsin. She got a good education. She got a journalism degree, but she didn't get what you get at an HBCU. An HBCU, you don't have to explain who you are, regardless of where you come from, right? So the culture, that's one thing. The excellence of the instruction. These were people who cared about what happened to the student, to every single student. And if you had a little bit of trouble academically or any other way, there was always someone there to support you. So I think that's the value of the HBCU, is that you hit the ground running. You hit the ground with people saying, and all the professors don't look like you, by the way, and all the students don't look like you, but you're valued from the day you step foot on that campus, and you're valued to the point where everybody is saying, you can do this. You can excel here. You can thrive here. You can grow here. You can learn here. You can do well here. So much so that my brother, who also is a Morgan grad, his last year of Morgan, really, he did that as his first year of med school. People come to HBCUs to recruit our best talent. That's great. That's because we have great talent there. So I could go on and on and on about the value of historically Black college and university. Two of our four young people in our family, of our children, they went to HBCUs as well. They went to Morgan.
If you just jumped in on this conversation, this is, oh man, that's HBCU week, and Travis Mitchell, one of our powerful friends at Maryland Public Television, has taken it upon himself to spread the message, to keep it alive. And I did hear your question, Travis, and Dr. Draper, which, surprise, is my mother, everybody, in case you didn't know, went there. And I went to Morehouse at first, where I majored in Spelman, Clark, and Georgia Tech. That was not a major, guys. So I came on back home to dear old Morgan. But I got a GPA reset. But then, I mean, when you come to a HBCU, which I went to Morehouse initially, it becomes kind of like you come into a new family, right? And then if you're there as a freshman, you're there freshman week, and you're learning all of the school songs, and you're doing all these like just bonding activities freshman week, and then you continue with these group of people, and then when the rest of the school comes, you meet some new people, but you come in with a group of familiar people from all over, and you get to know each other, and you get and you bond kind of from freshman year. I mean, you can still bond when you come later, but then that community kind of just grows, and you don't know your major yet a lot of times. Some people think they want to do this. They don't know exactly what to do. You're just taking your elective courses. Then as you get into your major, and then you start looking around, a lot of people go to the school and don't do a lot of research, like who went, like Black Enterprise, Earl Graves. You're going into the Earl Graves School of Business. That's where I studied that. But then you look, what he did in Black Enterprise, and you start looking at the long list. And I was just showing you a few celebrity alumni, but if you go through the list of the Morgan, who's who in Morgan State University, it'll the long list, and I can show you can do that with Howard, Morehouse, Spelman, Tuskegee, FAMU, all the rest of them, Dillard, and you'll find a long list of success. So success breeds success. So if you really tap into the HBCU family, you will find out that they breed success, and they really care that you're successful, meaning that you succeed at what you set out to do, and that's to matriculate through those schools, build those relationships, and do those classes. 9 times out of 10, what I did, the class I took at Morgan, I'm not using at all right now. But it showed you could start and finish something, and it gave you the ability to go through a situation and problem solve. So like everybody else, I could be on here all day long. But if you haven't looked at Morgan, you better take another look, because that campus is killing. And I travel all over the country to look at, it's not many campuses that rival Morgan. They have bought all of Cold Spring Lane, and they're still like, if your house is for sale, they'll probably buy it because they have so many students enrolling, because it is a good place. So when you have a problem that you can't house all these students, it means there's something good inside those doors. And if you don't tell your kids or your grandkids of what's good inside those doors, that's your fault, and that's being selfish.
Yeah, let me add this too about
I'm sorry, Travis. I'm on my soapbox now.
I love it.
Let me add this to your question too, Travis, about HBCUs. I know it to be true today as it was when I was in school. HBCUs prepare. If you have aspirations to go to graduate school, when I left Morgan and went to Johns Hopkins, no disrespect to Johns Hopkins, it has a great name, a great reputation, got a great education there for my master's. But after coming through Morgan, Hopkins wasn't anything, not really. The rigor, the things that I learned about studying and how to perform academically at Morgan. When I went to Hopkins, it was like, wow, is this all they want us to do? I think we lost Travis. He'll be back, but so the preparation was there. Jay, you want to weigh in on this question? I know you said you had.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Travis isn't here, but I wanted to go back to his point earlier that he said that they're working on this idea of a film festival with HBCU students. And I just wanted to ask him, what does that look like? What's the sort of the time frame for that? Because I feel like people will become, it's sort of a reifying kind of a situation. You bring in more students to do these kind of short films, and they're more likely to tell everybody, hey, go see my short film that's, a part of HBCU week with, Maryland Public Television. Thus, it gets more viewership and things like that. And I think it's a really brilliant idea. Obviously, one of the most famous, Black directors in the U.S. and probably worldwide, Spike Lee, also, as you show the website, is a Morehouse grad, right? So, and I believe like Ryan Coogler is also a HBCU graduate as well. So now that Travis is back, I can ask this question.
Yeah, so sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Hey, listen, when we get to talking about some good stuff, that's why, I mean, it's important that Travis, you share from that end, but then you trickle down to our networks, because nobody's going to tell our story. Nobody's going to get on the bandwagon of HBCUs like Black media.
Right.
And it's amazing that you have decided to take it up, and we thank you. Anyway, go ahead, Jay.
So my question to you, Travis, is you had mentioned the idea of this sort of student-led film festival. Mm-hmm. What is the time frame for that? Or is that a thing that's going to potentially launch next year for HBCU week? And I was saying to my co-host, the idea of sort of bringing in these HBCU students helps to sort of reify their commitment to talking about HBCU week and their experiences and their sort of unique perspectives, and then them getting their friends to watch it and, sort of helping to sort of snowball this. And I'm wondering if while doing that, you have such, prominent names in Hollywood as was shown in that list. Has there been a thought of like reaching out to some of those folks as well? Because I mean, HBCU grads are your greatest asset, and people who are graduates, as we can see in this episode, of HBCUs want to let people know that they went to HBCUs. So, people like Taraji P. Henson and, these other folks who are bigger names or very large names in Hollywood, I wonder if having them come in as well, or sort of reaching out to them, would help just kind of ignite this on a level that I would argue most people are clearly not aware of, as is, you guys are just starting over the last couple of years. But I think it is, to your point, deeply, deeply important to understand HBCUs, not only its own history, right, as these institutions, but its position in sort of the idea of America, right? This place of no matter where you come from, you can be pulled up by your bootstraps or pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and with your community move forward and move up. And so I hope that this sort of student-led film festival really does that, and hopefully it gets the attention of some of these other big names who benefited greatly from an education from an HBCU.
So great question, and I'm going to ask one of my colleagues, who I think is in the chat, to place, particularly for Impeccable, a short that was done about Morehouse and the legacy of Benjamin Mays that I think people might find refreshing. So I'm going to ask if she could put the link to that in the chat, and if not, I'll make sure to send it back to you. But to your question, if people are able to go to our YouTube channel at HBCU Week Now, they can see the kind of digital shorts that we're doing, and we actually feature a young man who's traveling to different campuses and just having everyday conversations. He calls them HBCU quizzes. What do you know about your HBCU? To the point that Impeccable made about how students many times don't know the history of their schools. And so he's really having a great time being able to share with his colleagues, what is your HBCU knowledge? So we want to also create user-generated content to make it easy for students to express themselves and go on their path of expression through their own storytelling with their friend group. But to the larger point that you made about the film festival, the time frame on that is we're going to be working with schools in public media. There's an organization called Black Public Media. We're working through Black Public Media to work with the schools to share best practices and to get the student competition set up. We've raised money to fund the student films. And so I'm looking to pass that money through to the school so it can go directly to the filmmakers. Now, I believe that everything that we're doing is at seed stage. And the reason why I say that, and I start at the beginning, it is impossible for this to be done with a individual agenda. Mine is a collective agenda. And so to your point, I feel that I can share, and I need people to share what's going on and invite more people to help. I'm trying to raise money so the money can pass through to the schools to develop their own films. I have a goal of creating 100 films about HBCUs. It didn't dawn on me that to date, and with what we have, we're close to about 40 already. And so that content can live on forever and really unpack the HBCU experience for people. And so what we want to do is we want to develop the content creation skills of our students. We want to give our HBCUs the platform, and we think YouTube and digital media is the great place for this stuff to live because we want it to go viral. We don't want there to be limited access, and one great thing, Dr. Draper, you and I have talked, I really feel like this is, if I could just I say this, I believe it's part of my kingdom assignment. I believe that this is akin to a calling, and the awakening that I'm trying to do in our communities is to value an asset that is taken for granted and undervalued in our own communities. And so if we don't stand up and make a big deal about HBCUs, if not now, then when? If not us, then who? And so we need to make sure that we rally. And so in order to do that, Jay, I need us to really first seed the ground with the right grassroots partners. Right. I need to make sure that the schools are aware, and we have work to do to make sure all schools are aware. We need to make sure that the public media stations are on board. I need the Black press to be on board. We want to build a coalition. Mm-hmm. I need to try to hitch my wagon to groups where we can go out and raise grant money so we can create content. So for instance, the Afro Archives, there's so many stories about the HBCUs in the Maryland area. Dr. Draper and I are looking for opportunities, Impeccable and Jay. How do we go out and raise money just so that we can put together a coalition of filmmakers that happen to be from HBCUs where students can work, and let's tell the stories. And then MPT has the platform locally and nationally. So we got to figure that piece out.
We're gonna huddle up in the back room on this one, Travis.
We got to figure out how to get celebrities to lend their names and their expertise so that once these student filmmakers are developed, Impeccable, you know your Rolodex and what you've done, and really just want to take a moment to say how proud as a Morganite I am of you and what you have accomplished. I mean, that is excellence that deserves to be recognized. And so whenever I get a chance to publicly be in a room with Dr. Draper, I want to recognize leadership and excellence. And so if we can build the right people and the right organizations together over time, it becomes a thing. And that's what we want to make sure. We're trying to create a movement. And I just wanted to echo some of the things that Dr. Draper said and try to put a fine point on this, Jay. And that is, like Dr. Draper, going to Morgan prepared me for everything. I've done executive education at Harvard. I got my master's degree in education from UPenn and Wharton. I'm in a doctoral program now at Penn State. It is my Morgan experience that has prepared me to compete academically and in any intellectual circle. And so Jay, what we need all people to know is that even if you did not go to an HBCU, the HBCU is there for you. It is always an open place to come for the intellectual exchange of ideas. And so I think that helps us expand the base beyond HBCU graduates to people who believe in what we're doing for our community and believe in our community. So we need a broad coalition of people together to make this happen. So, I have found in my life that as long as I am true to the vision that's been placed in my heart, and I'm not worried about taking credit or getting credit, I believe that I need to be a credit maker, not a credit taker. So anybody that wants to get on board with this thing, anybody that wants to help us, I have a small piece of a larger puzzle. And if we can figure out that puzzle, what success looks like is this: every HBCU in the country having access to the free public airwaves to be able to articulate its vision and value proposition. So that now we've demystified the HBCU experience, so students and parents aren't ignorant about the truth about the HBCU experience. Once that playing field has been leveled and students get accurate information about the possibilities in front of them at the HBCUs, and when HBCUs are positioned as innovation centers that provide solutions for urban and rural communities, I think we will have level set this process so that HBCUs are positioned to be integral a part of the growth of America over the next 25, 50 years. And so what we want to do is make sure that we use this moment in time to open up the floodgates so that this intellectual capital on our campus is released to our communities, and vice versa. There's investment of time, talent, and treasure in telling our stories and making sure that we have control over the narratives. That's what success looks like. And then that information is disseminated across multiple platforms. What we're trying to do cannot be done without the leadership in the Black press. It cannot be done without the authentic voices of storytellers. And it cannot be done if we don't tap into names that are much bigger than mine to get them to get behind this for the sake of our community.
You have said a lot. If you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box. We're talking to Travis Mitchell, innovator over at Maryland Public Television. He got his foundation. If you've ever built something, the foundation has to be strong at Morgan State by way of in the mindset of Shaw University. And we thank you. We probably could talk about this for 2 days, but we're just getting started. I know the Afro and yourself are going to get in the back room, because some of the things you said I had written down of one day that I wanted to interview all the presidents, but you're doing it. I'm saying, so our synergies are already aligned. The time has gone, and we always like to be respectful of everybody's time. And so what we do here is we get on the box. Matter of fact, before we do that, go to afro.com, you guys. If you don't have a subscription, for less than 2 Uber Eats, $40 a year, you're allowing us to have conversations like this and to really bring some things into your mindset that you might not have thought about, or maybe you forgot about. But we're here to remind you that there's some good news in the Black community. And so we need you. We're not owned and operated by anybody else. Nobody can tell us what to put on our front page, but what we think impacts our community. And we thank you for 132 years of service. Yes, we still have a newspaper. It's a legacy edition, but we are full stream in the future. I like to say we're getting tech sexy, y'all. So before we get off, we're getting on the box now. This is where you speak your truth. Whether I agree with you or not, you still my friend. But you get on the box and you share. Jay Jackson, last words. You're on the box about HBCU.
Okay. So one, thank you, Travis, for coming in. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. What I would say is we are finding ourselves at a sort of a upward hill battle, but as far as getting these kind of things fully into the mainstream, and it has always been an upward hill battle, but I do think we are making significant progress. And one of the things that is a telltale sign of that is that people who are not necessarily involved in these things start to give up money because they actually see that there is an earnest value in it, right? To Travis's earlier point about sort of the business argument. with the funding over the last 3 years for HBCUs of $16 billion on the federal level, which is absolutely unprecedented. We've never seen that high. I think this is a true opportunity for people to take notice of all of the contributions, many that Travis pointed out earlier. I'm sure there are millions more that we haven't even mentioned here in this short conversation. And I think this idea of using media to get tech sexy, as it was said, to kind of get these ideas and these perspectives out is deeply important. I think when you're talking about what HBCUs represent in the sort of the mosaic of what America is, I think it is incredibly brilliant to take this week to celebrate just what these perspectives that people often either miss or are completely unaware of. And so I appreciate Travis's work. I think it's really dope. And I'm going to sit down and watch these shorts. I have not had a chance to, but I'm just kind of scrolling through, and there are some really interesting perspectives. And I think I'm personally a big film person, so I'm really looking forward to this film festival as that comes aboard. I think that's really quite amazing. So I appreciate all your work, and I think HBCUs again deserve all the credit and more that they get. So thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm getting on the box. Before I just shout out to Shaw University, since you said it was Miss Gladys Knight leaning on the midnight train to Georgia. Woofs. Anyway, I thought I would start with that. In case you just tuned in and caught it, HBCUs have produced some of the best and the brightest. But you were saying, Travis, and I wrote it down, the success vision for the contemporary HBCU with innovation centers of the intellectual talents through our authentic voice of storytellers is our mission and mantra. So I'm on the box, and I am standing firm with my stake in the ground for HBCUs. No, you think I'm all black? I'm not all black, but I am authentically for our people. And I hate the fact that, not hate, that's a strong word, but I don't like the fact that other races get upset when we celebrate ourselves. And you know what? I have let it roll down my back like you should. And let's not worry about how they think about how we celebrate each other, because if we didn't celebrate each other, they never would. So I am officially off the box. That's my story. I'm sticking with it. And Travis, we connected now. We about to take this thing to the moon. Dr. Draper, you're on the box.
Every cause needs a champion. And so, Travis Mitchell, thank you for being a champion for this cause. Thank you for being a collaborator with others for this cause, because we know, all of us know that none of us is a lone ranger. None of us stands alone, because when we stand alone, that's how easy we can get picked off. I want to give a shout out, though, to MPT's management as well. Travis is our senior VP of content, but somebody there also caught the vision. And I believe they don't, they may not look like you. So it's not about, as Impeccable said, it's not just about black and white. It's about the uplifting of a community. And in this case, we're talking about bringing the prominence to HBCUs, not just the HBCUs that we can name real quickly, not just the top 10. There are 107 HBCUs in the United States, half and half private and public, all of whom struggle for their resource allocation, and so some got some greater resources than others, right? Some receive some resources because of the generosity of people like Mackenzie Scott, but there are a whole lot of resources within our community. So I salute you as being the champion for this cause. We look forward to collaborating with you to see where this is going. You're right, it can't go without the Black press, and all of us need the resources so we can leverage this and build up our HBCUs across the country. Like I said, not just the top 10, but across the country, all of whom, let me never say all, most of whom are doing great work. So thank you. I'm off the box.
You are off, and Travis, being our special guest, you have the last pleasure of getting on the box, Christina. I think it's X. I don't know. Dana, everybody else who's tuning in, even if you are watching on a replay, thank you. Share this information because it's somebody who needs to go and know about the HBCU movement. It's strong, y'all. Travis, you're on the box.
Well, I just wanted to thank you all for your affirmation and your confirmation. I don't take it for granted. It inspires me to keep going in days where I feel like giving up. And I want to encourage all of your supporters to support what you do, because this platform would not have been available to me without their support. So I want to encourage them to make an investment in the treasure that the Afro platforms are. And the final thing is I want to thank all those who are tuning in for giving us their hearts, their mind share, and their ears, and then encourage them to explore the content for yourselves. You can go to mpt.org/HBCU. All of the content is available on demand, and we would like to hear from you. And you can also go to @HBCU Week Now. It is our YouTube channel, and you can experience some of the content for yourselves. We are not where we're going to end up being, but I'm extremely grateful and thankful that the Lord has given us an opportunity to, while we're in the land of the living, to do something that is really vitally important for our community. And through his blessing, we will continue to grow to increasing heights and expanded territory. So I thank you so much for believing in what we're doing and giving me the opportunity to share today.
Absolutely. Everybody give it up for Travis. A little digital clap. Thank you for all you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. And of course, the Morgan State University. You know, I always say, call a senior. They would love to hear from you. Do not text them. Please take 5 minutes out your busy schedule. You done binge watched about 35 shows in a row. Call somebody in your family and say hello, because you never know. Names are popping up every day of people who are here today and gone today or gone tomorrow. So give them a call. They'd love to hear from you. Until next week, God willing, we will see you on the chicken box. And one day I feel, Travis, we're going to have the best chicken, because you just can't have a chicken box and don't really have a chicken box. So that might be on the 2025 thing. We might need to just open a chicken box and put some grilled chicken and some air fried chicken in there too. Maybe even some baked chicken. You guys have a great day. And thanks again for tuning in to the Chicken Box, powered by the Afro-American News Media Company. Bye-bye.
Bye.